What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Zeal cigar review. I'm JB. I'm going to be your host for the show, and we're going to talk about what the heck is the difference between a Maduro and a broadleaf. And we'll get to that all next on the Zeal cigar review. Now, today, I've been kind of spinning my wheels. It's kind of the first day where I'm kind of here by myself. Everything's kind of slowing down a little bit. Everybody's lives are kind of going back to normal. And I kind of was like, man, I'm kind of spinning my wheels a little bit with what's going on for the day. So I was like, what am I going to do? I know what. I'm going to make a video. And one of the last things that I remember a customer commenting about was talking about the difference between a Maduro and a broadleaf. So we're going to kind of go through that today, and I'm going to smoke a cigar with you guys and talk about it and figure out what the heck is the difference and are they the same. So simply, first things first, a Maduro cigar, the word Maduro simply just means ripe, right? So when you refer to a cigar that is a Maduro, it's a tobacco leaf that has been fermented for some period of time through at least 2 stages of fermentation in order to get it to be darker, richer, more aged essentially, right? So Maduro simply means ripe. So when somebody says, I like Maduro cigars, they're saying they simply like the tobacco aged a little bit longer or fermented in some longer period or some type of way, right? Now, a broadleaf cigar, like the one I'm gonna be smoking today, which is the Alec Bradley Double Broadleaf, one of my favorite broadleafs right now, by the way. This one's a little unique, and we'll get to that in a second. But a broadleaf cigar is a specific type of seed of tobacco grown in typically 3 regions. So you're looking at the Connecticut River Valley, which is probably one of the most popular. Connecticut broadleaf. Second one is going to be Pennsylvania. So you got the Pennsylvania broadleafs, right? And then the third major region is probably the Mexican San Andreas region. Down in the San Andreas region of Mexico, where you have the other broadleaf tobacco mostly grown. Now, I'm kind of one of those people that I would also maybe toss Brazilian tobacco into the mix a little bit. That's just my personal feeling. I don't think that that's referred to as broadleaf tobacco by any means from the industry that I could tell. So before I get into a little bit more detail about what broadleaf cigars are and how they can still be Maduros, I'm gonna first get into this Alec Bradley Double Broadleaf, and you know exactly what we gotta do. We gotta and smoke. Right off the bat with this Alec Bradley Double Broadleaf, you get a little bit of some woodiness, a little bit of like some rich, sweet molasses. So far, pretty good on first light, but I know this cigar, it's one of my favorites. But it is unique in the way that it's a Connecticut broadleaf seed grown in Honduras. So you'll see that a lot of times where even though this is considered a broadleaf cigar, it's not grown in one of those broadleaf regions. It's just those seeds grown down in a different region like Honduras. So what's funny is it still has the same kind of texture and thickness of it, but it's just growing in a different region with different soil, different sunlight, and things like that. Different air mixtures, so that's gonna make it a little bit different, which is one of the reasons I really like this broadleaf. So now that we kind of know the difference between a Maduro and a broadleaf, and that the word Maduro just means ripe, can a broadleaf cigar be a Maduro cigar? Absolutely. I've never been to the fields or a factory and seen cigars rolled, I'll be honest. I don't know what a broadleaf tobacco looks like when the stalk is cut, which is another fun fact. Most broadleaf tobacco plants are harvested from the whole stalk versus the leaves being taken off. So they just cut the whole stalk down and then they move it. That's why on like your Liga Privada number 9s and the T52s, you see stalk cut on there, right? Initially, yes, a broadleaf can still be a Maduro. They're still going to need to go through that fermentation stage. And then you'll see some companies that'll have like Mexican San Andreas Claros, which would obviously be one of those broadleafs not aged as long or fermented as long. Before we get into the stages of fermentation and kind of what cigar manufacturers do to ferment tobacco, I'm gonna smoke this cigar down a little bit and then come back and tell you guys what it tastes like getting into the second third. So hold that thought. All right, everybody, we're back. I'm getting into the second third of this Alec Bradley Double Broadleaf here. Man, it's a really good cigar. It just continues to get more and more rich and dark chocolate cocoa coming from it. It's right up my alley as far as what I like from a dark, rich broadleaf cigar. I've got to be impressed. I like what's coming out of Honduras as far as broadleaf tobacco goes, and I'm pretty picky about it sometimes, to be honest. Since we've kind of understood that like maduros usually go through a fermentation process, I figured I'd go over a quick, you know, point about the fermentation process. Tobacconist University has a really good page. If anybody who wants to learn more about tobacco in general, go to that page and you can learn about all kinds of stuff about tobacco. You'll learn more than I can ever tell you from those guys, right? There's 3 stages of fermentation. Most companies usually only use the first 2. And the first stage is kind of just the general letting the tobacco rest after it's been picked. Typically what they do with that is it's usually the first 30 days to kind of detox the tobacco. They usually try to keep it under 95 degrees. They don't want it to get too hot. If it starts getting over that, they rework the piles. Pretty simple. It's the easiest explanation, very layman's explanation of the first process of the fermentation, but it's not super rocket science. The second stage of fermentation is where things get a little bit more serious, and this is also where some of the creativity for the blenders and stuff start to come through. This is the stage where it's going to age for like 90, probably about 60 to 90 days typically, and this is where all the ammonia and things like that are going to start coming off the leaf. This is where all the impurities and things like that really come out of the cigar leaf. Something important I left out about the second stage of fermentation is this is where the leaves are separated. So once they go through the first set of fermentation, the first 30 days, then the leaves are kind of separated into like what they're going to be used for, you know, put into their groups together, filler, wrappers, binders, things like that. The tobacco that's really good, and where, you know, the different ways they're going to ferment it. There's a third stage, which, if I'm not mistaken, was originally started by Cohiba, and that's where they kind of started sticking, after they fermented the leaf through the second fermentation, they would do an extra stage of some sort of fermentation process, which would be like sticking them into barrels and things like that. And that's where you get the really cool ideas, like with the Mortal Coil, where Ricky Rodriguez took the tobacco and fermented it in the Yagua pods and then hung it back up in the tree and let it ferment that way. Or even the Yagua by J.C. Newman, they did something similar where they fermented the tobacco in the Yagua pods. And then you'll see companies like Perdomo who do a lot of like their barrel aging. So that's another thing that can happen in the fermentation process, which would usually be like the third step. But with that, I'm going to pause for a second. I'm going to get back into this a little bit more, come back to you guys closer to the band, maybe closer to the nub, let you know how the cigar tastes, and then I'll lay out a couple more of my favorite broadleaf cigars for you guys and see what's going on. All right, so I'm back with the Alec Bradley double broadleaf, the Honduran grown Connecticut seed, and I'll be honest, I really love this cigar. It starts off a little bit of black pepper, a little earthy, a little bit of dark cocoa. Then through that second third, really rich dark chocolate notes, still a little earthy, nice sweetness. Once you start getting into the final third, towards the end of that second third, what you end up getting is a little bit more leather, which somebody apparently never tasted in cigars, but I love the cigar. It's one of my favorite broadleafs right now. I definitely recommend you trying it if you haven't, even if you're not an Alec Bradley fan. If you watched one of our other videos, I think this could change your mind on some of the stuff that they're putting out. Really enjoy this cigar. Now, with that being said, I do have a few other broadleafs that I absolutely love. And the first one is the Tabernacle. I mean, you want a sweet, one of the best tasting broadleafs out there, the Tabernacle's definitely great. One of the few cigars I really enjoy in a Lancero. The McAuliffe Black. Man, everybody's been talking about this. You've heard us talk about this cigar. If you haven't smoked it, do yourself a favor. Mexican San Andreas, absolute amazing cigar, especially for the price point. The new Camacho Broadleaf. Now, I'll be honest about this one. This is one of those cigars that makes you go, how do broadleafs have such a different flavor profile attached to them? Because this was one of those ones that's not super strong, it's not super powerful. It's a little bit more on the nutty side. Really good broadleaf cigar. Last but not least, one of my favorite broadleafs, the Unicorn Broadleaf. This is one of those broadleafs that, mostly Dominican tobacco, one of those broadleafs that's a little bit on the lighter side as well. Very good, very smooth. The more these age, the better they get. And I'll be honest, I have a hard time letting broadleafs age because I just like to smoke broadleaf cigars. So with that being said, guys, if you haven't smoked a broadleaf cigar, you should. And hopefully that helps you better understand the difference between what a Maduro is and what a broadleaf cigar is. And with that, guys, it's been JB, been here for the Zeal cigar review, and I'm out of here like last year, guys. Peace.